ever keep them straight.
Yeah. And you can't. It was impossible to. Is still happening. It is impossible to support any side of that war without being on the wrong side.
Absolutely.
Like it's an absolute shit show. I can't me and you have been talking about it for years. I work with 3 Syrians. I can't wrap my head around it. Neither can they. Yeah. They don't even know. Like, I talked to one of the guys, and they're just like, "Oh, this is what's going on. This is what's been happening." I'm just like, no. It's like, not saying I know because I'm over here and just talking to Mike and reading CBC, but.
On the subject of like Iran again, though, like they're a fairly diverse nation ethnically. They have, they are susceptible to similar kinds of tension that happens in Syria. Although their sense of identity is still very strong as Iranian. Yeah, that's my understanding from what I've read. But I really hope that you get some sort of peaceful resolution there, because if Iran collapses into a state of civil war like Syria, which I don't think it will happen, but if they did, I think it would be just as it would be bloodier than what happened in Syria.
And we have a whole other refugee crisis.
Yeah, and there's 70 million people in Iran, whereas Syria was what? 30 million,
30.
Was it?
Yeah, it's basically the comparison from Aleppo to Syria is the same thing as Toronto to Canada in numbers, population. Like Aleppo had like 7 million people, and Syria had 30. 33 or something, 34.
30. Syria has like as many people as Canada in it.
Yeah. 30 million about.
See what the exact number is.
And a way smaller place.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, I was explaining to the guys I'm working with, like 3 of our employees are from Syria, and I was like trying to like tell them like the size of Newfoundland, and they were just like, what? And there's 400,000 people there.
Yeah.
Most of them are 65.
Yeah.
And they're just like, what? Like, massive. Like,
the population's only before the height of the war. No, it's still a lot. 17 million.
Okay, still.
Okay.
So that's for a way smaller space. That's a lot.
Yeah. Their density is way higher than Canada's.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
It's like if you look on a map, if you were to like take the same map and put it over, like the map of like Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan, and put it over like Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, like it really puts it into perspective how small those places are.
So they're all super high tension, super close together, populated, intense areas.
I told
kind
you.
of behind in modern civilization, and then on top of that, everything else you guys outlined, just a crazy.
There's so many factors as to why the Middle East has. I mean, it's kind of fitting maybe because it is like the oldest.
Right.
As far as like civilizations go, it's like, I guess, and by extension Egypt sort of, but like that kind of just the Middle East in general is just kind of like
bread and beer invented in Syria.
There you go.
According to Syrians.
Yeah, so maybe it makes sense that they've been in conflict for the longest, but like at the same time, like I don't know. I remember I told you about like how that there was a scientist I think who wanted to. I can't even remember the name of the parasite or the disease. But it's fecal-borne. Specifically, it's a parasite that affects domestic cats. They get it from whatever they eat.
Toxoplasmosis.
Yes. A scientist wanted to
name for our album before. Nice. In my head, anyway.
Anyway, Joe Rogan was discussing it on his show once, and basically, the whole people afflicted with toxoplasmosis are going to do more like risky things. They're going to be more boneheaded. Like the correlation between
I heard about this.
The correlation between motorcycle accidents and people infected with toxoplasmosis was like incredibly high. Like it was ridiculous. And like basically, I guess this scientist, I can't remember his name, but he wanted to study the correlation because like the cat was first like domesticated in and around the Middle East.
Yeah.
So he wanted to like actually get people's like genetic samples and just see how much toxoplasmosis was in a given like area, like say the fucking West Bank or whatever, or the Gaza Strip, and he got shot. Like he just got shot down. no, everyone was like, no, we don't want to hear about it.
Oh, it's so brutal.
It sucks because what if that? Yeah, like what if that was?
My opinion is it's not a very good hypothesis.
Right. Okay.
So here's the thing: the war in the Middle East is relative to wars in the past. It's probably not that unusual. If you look at Europe, for centuries, no millennia, was worse.
Yeah.
Just like the Middle East back then was worse.
Yeah.
So I can see why maybe there's something to it. I don't think it. I mean, we actually live in an era of ridiculously peaceful compared to what it was.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah.
So what we're seeing right now is we're seeing sectarian strife that really wasn't as prevalent in the Middle East because there were empires there before, and they were always at wars with each other. It was very costly. But I mean, if you could show me that one population had more toxoplasmosis than the other, I would still question whether, like, say the Middle East turns out to have way higher rates of toxoplasmosis. And maybe that does account for some sort of increase in sectarian violence. I then would want to know, well, what physiological reason caused Europeans to go through 2 world wars that nearly depopulated Eastern or Western Russia? Like 20 million Russians dead. That's a scale of war that the Middle East has not seen since the Mongols invaded.
Like, what else are these people doing that made them the type of people to want to have more cats around?
Well,
that could be a factor too.
Do they have higher rates of cat ownership? They may have domesticated cats first,
right?
But they also apparently had beer first.
Yeah,
I'd say.
Well, I was reading about toxoplasmosis, and there's certain places where like 99% of the population has it.
That's crazy.
I probably.
Well, man, I feel like the why people go to war, it's like, or why people are violent. Man, there could be physiological reasons. There could be psychological reasons.
Oh, it's a whole stew.
Economical.
And I think that's what the guy was trying to look or like check, because he was curious, right? But just I don't know. It's kind of like the situation in Sweden now, where like they won't say who it was if there's a bomb. Like basically the article I read today was just like a bomb went off when an old man picked something up because he was curious as to what it was. That was the whole article pretty much. Like, it didn't say who it was.
Yeah.
It didn't say, like, you know what I mean? And everyone could read between the lines. They're like, why is the liberal, like the overly, like too liberal Swedish government so horrified of the fact that all the, like any sane person knows that, like, there's millions and millions of peaceful, sane, well-adjusted Muslim people, but like, what is the government going to do about the handful that are making like pipe bombs and putting them in public places?
Blowing up old men who just go,
what's this? And I think that's
blowing up old men.
Yeah,
why the Jesus?
Jesus.
I don't know. I think it's just really irresponsible. Like.
It is.
You just turn a blind eye like that. Like it's.
If you want to understand any situation, you have to look at it from probably a million different angles.
Like there's
not one answer to anything.
They're making way more ethnic Swedes detest their recent immigrants than they are like. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the other thing.
They're doing they're doing more damage in the long run by not addressing it. But they're like.
Willful blindness. Bro.
Absolutely. The police, like a police officer in Stockholm was like, yeah, I left. I quit my job because I couldn't take it anymore. I was sick. I was sick of lying.
That's why
to satisfy like the fucking bourgeoisie fucking whatever like narrative they wanted to have going.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
It's a hard balance because like I do understand from one point of view how like the media aspect of a terrorist attack. I mean, look at all the people who are running people over in cars all of a sudden. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like the spreading of that information sometimes can give people like.
Or shooting up, blowing up venues with people at concerts.
Well, yeah, like that was kind of like bothering me for a bit. Yeah. It's just like, but. Like, how do you just live in a world where we're just like, oh, well, we're just going to censor this now, so it doesn't spread the information of it, so it doesn't happen. Like, I think these people are going to do something, but there is like, There is evidence behind like media blackouts having an effect on stopping certain things from happening.
We say that
is it the right option? I don't know.
That's what they say with suicide.
It's so situational too, right? Each instance where something crazy happens, I'm sure they have to assess the situation and decide how they're going to approach it.
Yeah.
And then hopefully the people making those decisions are competent and qualified to be making calls like that. But not even they totally understand the situation either.
No.
It's so complex.
So was that their reasoning for blacking that out?
They also
basically
have been,
it's been a real, like, that's as far as I've read, like, that's of late it's been a real problem because they've just it's happening more and more and more basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
we talked about it on the second podcast, did we not?
Yeah, we did. Basically just like, and the comments usually say it all, you know, like some guy from the UK was just like, oh right, because pipe bombs are just lying on the street all the time, you know, nothing strange about that, you know, like, I don't know.
They don't just really pop up.
Yeah,
you got an Irishman around.
Some IRA fuckers.
Yeah.
It's nothing to just, you hear about like a random explosion in some random part of your country every day. Oh, that random fucker got blown up. That just happens. People do just blow up from time to time. So what are you going to do?
How do you approach that, right?
Usually you say there was a bomb.
Treat everyone as individuals.
You gotta treat everyone as individuals.
Treat everyone as individuals. Hold everyone accountable as individuals.
That'll do everyone much more good if you do that. Holding people accountable would be much better.
Yeah. And that's Peterson's biggest argument is that everything rests on individuals being responsible, and everything falls apart if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Because then you need to be controlled by someone else. Or your government just gets so corrupt it starts trying to maintain itself in a corrupt manner.
I have no idea how I'm going to vote now.
I'll vote for you.
Yeah.
Run for...
I want Anton to run for president of Canada.
No.
Form a political party, the Cat Party. The Toxoplasmosis Party.
Where my toxoplasmos at?
Yeah. So can we hold somebody that has toxoplasmosis individually responsible for their actions?
That's a good point.
Well, it depends on if you ask. Like, if you ask a Hindu, they'd say that was the result of their previous lives' karma, and they were born into this life because of what their actions were in the past. Mm-hmm. The life with toxoplasmosis.
What if someone was
that's what's going to continue your spiritual evolution, bro.
What if someone was reincarnated as
Toxoplasma
gondii, I think is the name of the parasite.
Yeah.
That is your karma you get.
You must have been a really parasitic individual. You like acting like
that. Oh, you're really fucked up.
Yeah.
Be a virus or some awful thing. Yeah.
Reincarnated as a fucking single HIV virion. Doesn't even get anywhere. It just
get reincarnated as a prion.
Oh my god. A little prion and just like go into a sheep's brain. The sheep dies. After like maybe 10 years, and then the prion just stays there forever, and then eventually.
What's a prion?
It's like a type of protein that it forms into a disordered state that is essentially an infectious particle. So as this protein interacts with other similar like proteins, it can cause them to fall into a disordered state. And these proteins can form aggregates in your tissues, and it can, so in particular, the prions involved in mad cow disease were of note. Basically, you eat the prion, and it eventually gets this. It's like a protein that was in the cows. They were infected with it in very small amounts. You can just take very few prions to build to a state of disease. They go through your gut, your digestive system, and eventually make their way into your nerves and then into your brain, and they interact with a prion-like protein in our brain. PRP, I think is what it's called. And every time it interacts with one of your proteins, it causes it to form into this disordered state. And these are insoluble in the cells, and they form these huge aggregates that cause degeneration of your nervous system. They will be the way that I think that's the way the world will end.
Yeah,
prions.
Don't even get me started on my prion theory, because it's because they are. There's no way to really treat it
currently.
Well, there are some prion-like diseases